Open triads are great for creating kind of classical sounding chord progressions, beautiful chord progressions. This is something that came up in a Zoom lesson I did the other day where we were talking about voice leading and open triads. And I realized that there are a few chord progressions that I keep coming back to when I teach. These chord progressions seem to work really well for developing this ability to play open triads. So I'm going to show you these chord progressions. There are 4 of them. 2 are kind of very common jazz chord progressions. And then we're going to borrow 2 chord progressions from rock, I guess. And then later on we're going to add some more techniques to it. But first off, it's important that we know what we're talking about. What are open triads? I'm pretty sure most of you know, but let's go over it anyway. A triad is 3 notes that creates a major chord or a minor chord or some kind of chord. It could be augmented, diminished. For the purpose of this lesson, we're only going to look at major triads, minor triads, and diminished triads. So that would be a closed C major triad. And then if I play it here, it's the first inversion and then second inversion. Then all I have to do is take the middle voice and throw it up an octave. So instead of a third plus a third, I now have a fifth plus a sixth. You hear this sound all over the place in pop music and rock music. Sting, right? So the inversions would be, first inversion is a sixth plus a fifth. And second inversion minor. So you want to make sure that you know these triads all over the fretboard and in different inversions and all that stuff. So the closed triad, there's only one way to play it. As a chord, as a line, I can play it in different ways. But the open triad, I can either play like this, string, string, skip, or string, skip. So like this, or like that. Which presents a little bit of an issue, because some of these triads are going to be pretty stretchy, but I think you can play them. Alright, so let's look at the first chord progression, which is Autumn Leaves. Let's play Autumn Leaves in E minor. So the chord progression is A minor, D, G, C, F sharp diminished, B, E. This is an extremely common chord progression in any kind of music. Let's play them as open triads. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to use this shape for these exercises. So I'm going to play a string skip and then like that rather than this. I find this one a little bit better, more useful. Okay, so now I'm going to go to D, but I want to use the closest voice leading. So this is the kind of stuff that Mick Goodrick talks about in his voice leading books, right? That the root of the A stays and the other 2 notes go up 1 step in the scale. Now the root is here. So that note stays and the other 2 notes go up. Now the G is my index finger, is the note that's going to stay. So this is a little bit stretchy, so you can play it like that. I find it's confusing if you're not consistent. Now we have C. So the ring finger is gonna stay, and then the F sharp diminished, even more stretchy. Now I have a B, and then E. So now I'm using good voice leading. It's a different sound than playing. And ironically, to me, it sounds more modern to me. Even though I guess modern harmony should be all these extensions, but I find that it's often better to simplify if you want to make it sound more hip and modern. So obviously you can do this with other inversions. I'll start on the root position here. If I play the same progression starting on the first inversion, I get this. So you should be able to do that on different set of strings and all that stuff in different keys. You don't have to play through every key, but you should be able to do it in a few different keys. So if we do it in C minor, for example, I'm going to start on F minor. Another thing about this is that it opens up my fingers so I can create melodies on top of this. So it enables me to kind of improvise and make it sound like I'm playing some classical stuff, but all I'm doing is playing those open triads and adding little melodies to it. The more the better you master these triads, the easier it's going to be to do what I just did there. Some of you are maybe thinking, shouldn't those chords like the B and the D be dominant chords? Yes. So all you have to do to make them dominant chords is to drop the root a step, and then you create a diminished triad. So if I do that, instead of playing this, I play that. It's like a D7, but without the actual D. You hear this in Bach's music all the time. So then I get that. And here, that's like a B7. You can think of those as diminished as well. We're gonna look at that later on and do even more stuff with that. But let's move on to the next chord progression. The next chord progression I wanna look at is actually a very famous Eagles tune. I have to be very careful because this is one of those tunes that are very strict regulations for copyright. But you're allowed to play chord progressions, so let's hope the algorithms don't find me. So it's this tune, right? I've always loved that chord progression, even though the tune is kind of overplayed. So B minor to F sharp. I'm treating them as triads, even though they're dominant chords, but I'm treating them as triads here. A, E, G, D, E minor, F sharp. So let's start here. First inversion. So I'm not trying to play like the actual song. I'm borrowing the chord progression because I like the chord progression and I want to create the same harmonic movement. I'm not trying to play the tune. F sharp, A to E, different inversions. Another thing you can do with this is to create kind of arpeggios. Use these triads as kind of starting points for your arpeggios. If we look at the previous chord progression, it's kind of playing an E minor or a G major scales in fifths or fourths if I go up. So it's A, D, G, C, F sharp, B, E. Those are, it's like stacking fourths. Right? So a lot of tunes have those chord changes. Fly Me to the Moon, for example. My One and Only Love is another one. But this other chord progression, Hotel California, is kind of reversed. It goes... It's like the opposite of that, which is kind of unusual. So please, if you can think of another tune that have a similar chord progression as Hotel California, like a jazz tune, I can't think of any. But if you do, please let me know in the comments below. Next up is another rock tune, Private Investigations by Dire Straits. I remember I loved this tune when I was learning to play guitar. One of the first tunes I tried to lift from the recording. So again, I'm not trying to play what Mark Knopfler is playing. I'm just borrowing this very beautiful chord progression to create interesting harmonies. I guess it's in E minor, this tune. So it starts on E minor. And B minor. B minor again. A, G to F. Then I'm gonna abandon my triads and play 4-part chords. B7 with the 7th on the bottom to E minor. G diminished to F sharp minor 7 flat 5 to B. It's that tune, right? Try to start at a different place. B minor, second inversion. yeah. So let's look at some of those chords. The F doesn't belong to the key, but if I go back to the Autumn Leaves, remember I said it was stacking the notes of the scale as fourths. So it's going to be a 4, right, to D, a fourth to G, a fourth to C. But now it's going to be an augmented fourth. Somewhere it has to be, because it's a diatonic scale, there is always this gap somewhere. Otherwise it doesn't work, right? But you can shift it by, instead of playing instead of F sharp, split, B, E, I can go F, B, and put the shift between the F and the B instead. And I get this: A, D, G, C, F, B, E minor. I think there's a fancy name for that, like Neapolitan chord or something, I don't know. But it's very common in classical music as well. And in pop music, like B flat, G, C, F, B flat, E, A minor. So that's how that F functions there. The G diminished, it's like an F sharp dominant chord, which is the dominant to the B, so the dominant to the following chord. And the F sharp minus F flat 5 is the related 2 chord to the B. So that's something that you have to wrap your head around, that like a dominant, secondary dominant can be going to the next chord, but there could be a subdominant before that. It's still functioning the same way. So then it would sound like this. G to F, B, E, F sharp. Again, practice them in different keys so you get a feel for these different chords and how they relate to each other. Next up is Pat Metheny's James, the B section. We have secondary dominants A, the F sharp is the dominant to B minor, and the C sharp is the dominant to F sharp minor. Then it's A with the bass drops to G, and then we're creating a diminished triad, right? So A, but the G on the bottom. Parallel harmony, which is not used in classical music. There's this interview with Pat Metheny from the Rick Beato interview, which I'm sure a lot of you have seen, where they talk about this very tune and the B section and how actually it's very difficult to solo over. And then Pat Metheny demonstrates how to use open triads. So you can see it's not just me saying, oh, use open triads. Pat Metheny uses open triads, and if it's good enough for him,
to then be able to go.
I mean, if somebody open triads and just arpeggiating,
and I'm doing just playing the chords. If somebody did that on a bandstand, people go, yeah.
So you need to be able to play the inversions, right? Here we can also think of those secondary dominants as diminished chords. I just drop the roots, then I have a diminished triad. And here too, right? So C sharp diminished. I can make even more fancy diminished voicings. I can do that, or even that's actually not a diminished voicing, is it? The voice leading. Some voices go down and the bottom go up, so it's contrary motion. Sometimes they will even, what they do in classical music is they delay the resolution. Creating like a diminished chord over. So C sharp diminished. And then D, but I play the diminished chord on top. Resolving it. And notice here the contrary motion. Some tunes they do that in jazz as well, like You Must Believe in Spring. Michel Legrand used this technique all the time. This chord, right, the diminished chord over the tonic, it's hard to come up with a good name for it. It's often it's a misunderstood chord because sometimes they will call it D major 7 sharp 5 or something, but it's a diminished chord over the tonic. It wants to resolve. Also, that tune, If I Should Lose You, has that kind of thing in it. If you thought that these chord progressions were kind of simple, take a difficult tune like Falling Grace. See if you can do it with... Yeah, that was my lesson on open triads and certain chord progressions that I like to play. I hope you liked it. Please let me know if you have a favorite chord progression that you kind of keep coming back to when you practice triads. With all that, as always, the PDF is on my Patreon page. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you for your time and attention, and I shall see you next time.